You found London Taxi Radio, the station for London's taxi drivers.
A site called Not Cool Uber has tracked the earning potential of Uber drivers, and here are some of the facts that Uber don't want you to know about. The earnings are based on 90 pence per mile, even though it is recorded in some cities around the world that they reduce the pay to around about 24 pence per mile. For the sake of argument, we will base the Uber drivers' earnings on 90 pence per mile. So we calculated how much Uber drivers get to keep out of that 90 pence per mile. First of all, Uber take 25% cut from that 90 pence. Since 2015, all Uber drivers signing up to the company pay 25%. That brings us down to 65 pence per mile. Then you have to deduct tax because Uber doesn't deduct tax at source, and the driver will have to account for it. Let's say 10%. We are now down to 60 pence per mile. Now we need to factor in depreciation of the car. The car is an asset, and like everything else, eventually it will wear out and the driver will have to buy a new one. It is estimated that the depreciation on a vehicle that is used for working would be around about 54 pence per mile. This takes into consideration depreciation at 24 pence per mile, fuel costs at 12 pence per mile, repairs at 9 pence per mile, and insurance, licence fees and sundries, etc. again around about 9 pence per mile. So with the depreciation, repairs and insurance accounted for, we are now down to around 6 pence per mile that eventually ends up in the hands of the Uber driver. Now, considering UberX drivers are expected to provide such things as water, chewing gum and phone charging equipment, we can assume that Uber pays well below the minimum wage. Worse than that, it could end up costing drivers to work for Uber. Given that the maths are so bad, why would anybody want to work for this parasitic company? Well, going by what an Uber driver posted on Facebook, who said he was £400 behind his rent, you could say Uber works like a loan scheme. You may get £400 in your hand, but that doesn't account for the fact that the driver will need to pay the taxman, nor has he factored in any repairs or the cost of a new vehicle. Isn't this the kind of driver Uber loves? Precarious workers that are desperate for cash and don't really know enough about how Uber operates to consider all the factors. If you drive 30 miles, you're only earning roughly £2 per hour, and even less when you take licence fees into consideration. But if Uber drivers think that they will eventually get help to earn more money, they'd better think again. Because during the last quarter, Uber's share value dropped by over $1 billion. This is an unsustainable company that is being propped up by regulators around the world. It's time to think differently. It is time for the Department of Transport, the Mayor of London and TfL to put an end to unsustainable companies that take investment from countries who commit human rights violations to stamp over established trades, decimate local businesses and exploit its workforce. This is a company that shirks employment laws, domiciles its tax affairs abroad, promotes zero-hour contracts and hides information from the authorities so as not to apply safety provisions. And in less than 2 weeks' time, what is TfL going to do about it? And if the answer is nothing, then the question needs to be asked, what are we going to do about it?
They don't like it up themselves.
London Taxi Radio.